Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is Montana This Morning from Montana's news leader.
President Trump says he's in no rush for North Korea to denuclearize. I'm Stephen Portnoy in Hanoi, Vietnam, where the president meets with Kim Jong-un this week.
Dangerous winds are expected to move from the Midwest to the Northeast today. They're being brought by weather that proved both destructive and deadly over the weekend. I'm Mark Liverman with a look at some of the damage.
And we're going to take a look at a whole bunch more snow coming our way that's been coming down overnight. And Matt, you've been mentioning it's that blowy, puffy snow, making it real difficult for visibility.
Visibility, driving conditions, blowing and drifting snow, major issues throughout the day. And this morning we have Chet out in the elements. He's been dealing with the wind at times this morning. Chet.
That's right, Missy. Matt, we're going to make it real simple for you today. If you don't have to go out, I would recommend not. The snow continues to fall. The winds have picked up here. We are live at the town pump at Four Corners. Winds have picked up just in the last 10 to 15 minutes. I'd say 10 to 15 miles per hour now. Single digits above according to the thermometers here. That means wind chills well below zero. That snow that's falling is light and fluffy. That means visibility is going to be a factor. It's going to be on the ground. It's going to be run over, and that means the roads are going to be slick. What am I telling you? Slick roads, poor visibility, bad temperatures, cold temperatures, windy conditions. This is just not the day you want to take a road trip. If you can avoid it, I would suggest doing that. If you can't, make sure your vehicle is in good condition. Make sure you have stuff with you to keep you warm should something happen to you. Your cell phone is fully charged. You have extra warm clothes, blankets, those kind of things in your vehicle. Let somebody know where you're going at all times. Again, if you don't have to go, that would be the best bet. But if you do, make sure your vehicle and you and the people in your car are ready for you. As you're taking the kids out to the bus stop today, let them sit in the car and wait for you until the bus gets there. It is just cold. Like I said, the wind's starting to pick up. You can't really see it right now, but blowing kind of out of the east right now, just slamming into the side of my face here. We are live at the Four Corners Town Pump. The wind continues to blow, the snow continues to fall, and it looks like a winter is set in, at least according to Matt's forecast, for the next several days. Again, Chet Lehman reporting live. I'm going to send it back to Missy and Matt in the studio.
Thank you for that, Chet. Wow, those are just some good things to go by today. Very windy.
Just looking at the live shot out there, you know, people are going a little too fast even through that intersection when I'm watching. Just because you have four-wheel drive doesn't mean that you're safe.
Doesn't mean that everybody else does either.
That's exactly right. Snow and ice are going to be a big issue. Road conditions at Homestake Pass, Bozeman Pass, dealing with snow and ice takes some extra time. Severe driving conditions near Divide along I-15. Also, that snow and ice impact very high. The temperature impact working its way toward the extreme side, especially as that wind picks up later today. Temperatures well below zero in some cases out toward White Sulphur Springs, 28 degrees above in West Yellowstone. You can see that snow continues to fall. That's our MSU campus ICAM this morning. Leave some extra time. It is going to be cold and slick throughout the day. We'll see some bands of heavy snow from time to time. Just the bottom line, leave extra time if you have to travel today. We'll talk more about your complete forecast in just a few minutes.
Thank you for that, Matt. Let's stay here on weather here for a moment. At least 5 people have died as a result of powerful storms sweeping across the country. Dangerous winds are expected to move from the Midwest to the Northeast throughout today. From CBS News, Mark Liverman has more from New York.
A more than 100-car pileup in Wisconsin left at least one person dead. Just one tragic story emerging from destructive weather that moved through the Midwest this weekend and is headed toward the Northeast.
Slow down. That is the biggest thing we can say is slow down.
This is what's left after a tornado tore through part of northeast Mississippi Saturday. At least one woman there was killed after a building collapsed on her in the city of Columbus. Parts of the South have seen day after day of heavy rain.
Literally, we had to switch to the far left lane because the right 2 lanes are too deep.
The Tennessee River is facing dangerous flood levels, and in Shelby County, Tennessee, roads were closed because of mudslides.
That's easily 5 feet, and so my worry is that it will start flowing into our backyard.
The Plains states were hit with a major winter storm. Some drivers faced with whiteout conditions on roadways Saturday.
As you can see, it's very dangerous driving conditions out here, so you just need to stay home, get off the roads.
The Northeast will be faced with high winds through today, the same winds that caused this truck in Indiana to roll over yesterday. Upstate New York could face wind gusts up to 75 miles per hour. Mark Liverman, CBS News.
Wow, so we're pretty much on par with the rest of the country. The weather is causing some flight delays as well. The storms have so far left hundreds of thousands of people without power as well. In other news, President Trump leaves for Vietnam later today. CBS's Stephen Portnoy is in Hanoi with a preview of his second summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un.
On the eve of his departure for Vietnam, President Trump told a gathering of the nation's governors he's developed a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un.
We have a special feeling, and I think it's going to lead to something very good, and maybe not. I think ultimately it will, but maybe not.
Since the two met in Singapore last June, progress toward denuclearization in North Korea has been slow. Last night, Mr. Trump signaled he's flexible about the timetable.
I'm not in a rush. I don't want to rush anybody. I just don't want testing. As long as there's no testing, we're happy.
Here in Vietnam, the president intends to sell Kim on the economic benefits of giving up his country's nuclear weapons. On Face the Nation, Massachusetts Democratic Senator Ed Markey told CBS's Margaret Brennan Mr. Trump may show he's too eager to make a deal.
We could run the risk that Kim is given concessions which are not accompanied by real concessions that the United States is receiving in return from Kim and his regime.
You're saying the president's going to get played?
I think that he has to be very careful going in.
Before heading here to Asia, the president made plans for his next summit with China's President Xi Jinping at Mar-a-Lago next month. There, the president aims to finalize a landmark trade deal. For now, the broad tariffs he planned to put in effect in early March are once again on hold. Stephen Portnoy, CBS News, Hanoi, Vietnam.
Now, that summit takes place Wednesday and Thursday. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has already said that a third meeting may be necessary if this one is not able to accomplish all of the president's goals. Closer to home, tonight, the City Commission meeting, Michael Wallner will present a report on how Bozeman ranks in tax revenue compared to similar cities. MTN's Badaris Bab tells us what the data shows.
With the build of Bozeman's second high school, the passing of the $37 million Public Safety Center bond, and the county looking for a new Law and Justice Center, property taxes have been going up. Deputy Mayor Chris Mell says because of this, there is a huge burden on property owners when it comes to taxes.
Because you can't keep going to the same well and not eventually dry it out. It's just, it's not fair, it's not right. And so it's a lot to put on one tool. And so if you can diversify that, I think it's fair, but it's also more stable. And frankly, there's going to be more acceptance of this over the long run.
Mel wanted to know the severity of the burden, which is why he asked economic research specialist Michael Warner to analyze similar cities to Bozeman to find out what their tax structures look like. 13 cities were chosen in and out of the state, including Bend, Oregon, Fort Collins, Boulder, Helena, and Whitefish. The result? Bozeman ranks 4th highest in property taxes, but had the 4th lowest average median household income.
If we keep increasing these property taxes, eventually citizens within the middle class are not going to be able to afford to live here. And then we will become much more like a Sun Valley or a Jackson Hole. And I think everybody recognizes we have a high quality of life, we have an amazing community, and that's something that we're striving to support within this valley.
One of the ways of doing this would be through a local option sales tax. The commission is lobbying for House Bill 195 at the state legislature, which would give towns in Montana the ability to ask local voters to decide whether or not to impose a 2% tax on certain goods and services. In Bozeman, Badaris Bab, MTN News.
Badaris adds Bozeman was in the very middle for the amount of tax revenue. And this week, under the big sky, whether Sean Kotchel of Kotchel Guitars is making an acoustic or a hard-body resonator guitar, choosing the right wood is the crucial first step in his process, and it's essential to finding just the right sound.
Under the Big Sky is sponsored by Rocky Mountain Vein Clinic and Markovich Real Estate.
The process is first deciding what style of guitar I want to make, and then picking the wood that would go with that style. If I'm doing it by hand, start making up the jigs to cut the wood out. And then if I'm using the CNC machine, I'll start making the program to cut the wood out. All that stuff is just the roughing out. Once the guitar's roughed out, then the handwork starts. I take it from the raw wood to the roughing to the finish work. All the little accents and whatnot. To make an average electric resonator guitar, that'd be a solid body resonator guitar. It takes about 60 hours, and that's from raw start to finish. And then to make an acoustic guitar, it definitely averages about 220 hours. A lot more time goes into an acoustic guitar just because there's just a lot more that needs to be done in order to make it sound good and to set it up properly. There's things that once it's done to an acoustic, there's no turning back, to where when you're working with a solid body resonator guitar, there's a lot of adjustment that can be made throughout the whole process. There's a metal cone in a resonator guitar, and the metal cone acts as a speaker, and it gives a resonance of a sound to amplify the strings that go over the bridge. And that style of instrument leads to a unique sound. To me, it evokes an old-timey, early Americana sound that you might have heard old recordings of Robert Johnson or whoever. And that sound is what I'm always kind of shooting for.
Now, of course, you are able to watch all of our current stories by visiting underthebigsky.com. Sounds so cool. And today is the day. Coming up after a quick break, we've been waiting for the Special Olympic Winter Games for quite some time, and opening ceremonies kicks off at 9 a.m. on the Moonlight side of Big Sky Resort, and very snowy Monday today, just over an hour from now. Up next, our own Brooke Leonard from MTN Sports introduces us to Amy, an athlete competing in the games today. But first, let's check in with our friends at CBS this morning to see your headlines coming up at 7.
Good morning. Ahead on CBS this morning, we're in Vietnam as President Trump prepares to leave for his second summit with Kim Jong-un. Why the president seems to be at odds with his advisors over North Korea's nuclear threat. Plus, meet the extreme sports couple who made the record books by climbing the world's 4th tallest mountain and then skiing all the way down. We'll see you at 7.